Season 2 of This Place, Our Voices officially returns this October. But this is a story that cannot wait. With Gary preparing for an upcoming trip to Ukraine and important fundraising events taking place throughout September, this episode needs to be heard now. This is a special early release of This Place, Our Voices. Please listen, share it, and if you can, support Gary's fundraising efforts, whether that's by getting involved, attending one of the events, or making a donation. Thank you for listening.
Sit back and relax as we listen to one of the many special voices from our community. On this episode of This Place, Our Voices, with your host, Elisa.
In this episode, we're joined by Gary Fier, branch manager of Butters John B. Nantwich. However, today we're not talking property, we're talking Ukraine. Since 2022, Gary has taken regular trips to Ukraine, delivering food supplies to those who are in desperate need, supported by this local Cheshire community. Welcome, Gary.
Hello.
Let's start at the beginning. What first made you decide to go to Ukraine?
A very long story, really. In 2018, my next door neighbour said, come round and see me. I've got a really good idea to raise some money for our local first responders. Popped to see him. He said, we're going to buy a really old car. I'm going to drive it all the way to Chernobyl in Ukraine. We'll get lots of sponsorship, lots of badges all over the car and stickers, and we'll try and raise £5,000 for our first responders. And I said, well, why is it a really old car? He said, it's more of a challenge. If we can get there, that'll be a feat in itself. He called it Wobble to Chernobyl because he was so certain the car wouldn't get there. But we drove across Europe and ended up going through Poland into Ukraine. I think we did 15 countries in that time. Had a full day in Kyiv, and then the next day had a tour around the exclusion zone at Chernobyl. Absolutely incredible time. But out of the 15 countries that we went to, the Ukrainian people gave us the warmest welcome. And I made friends with so many and stayed in touch. So when the war started, I decided I got to do something.
What do you remember most vividly from your first trip? Was there a particular personal moment that stayed with you?
The very first person we gave food to was in Lviv. We didn't go as far as Kyiv on the first trip, but that was in Lviv. And he was just so delighted, couldn't believe that someone had travelled from England just to bring food to people. I think the thing that stuck with me as well from that trip was the first time we'd heard air raid sirens. And when you hear that start up, it sends shivers down your spine. First time we'd seen any damaged buildings. We saw a factory that had been hit by a missile. First time we saw a lot of soldiers at every checkpoint, all heavily armed. It was a very sobering experience, but an incredible one.
You're obviously an estate agent by profession, rather than someone who set out to become a humanitarian worker. How did this become such a big part of your life?
I think after the first trip, we realised what good we could do with a smallish amount of money. The first trip, we took £6,500 with us. Each bag of food costs about £20. It's actually slightly cheaper now because of the exchange rate and so on. But I think it was a case of just seeing the look on someone's face when you give them a bag of food. It just became, I've got to do this. I've got to keep doing it. And that was it.
At what point did you realise this wasn't going to be a one-off trip?
I think on the third or fourth day of the first trip, we'd left a lot of food in what we called a mission house. It was a place for refugees. We went out doing more shopping, and we came back, and all these guys had packed all this food into individual bags. And we were taken off to a school. It was a disused school, but we went in and there were 16 to 18 people in classrooms on forklift pallets with thin mattresses, and all their belongings were in that room as well. And when you see what terrible conditions they lived in, I said to Igor, my Ukrainian friend, well, this isn't the last trip. We'll be back again as soon as we can. And that's how it went.
What's it actually like travelling to areas affected by the war and distributing food and supplies?
At times scary, but you tend to put that at the back of your mind. I think it's the welcome that you get. It's so well organised now. People are expecting us. Sometimes we've got 200 people waiting for us, and we'll arrive with 200 bags of food. And I think just the look on their faces is just, it's just priceless. You can't describe it. You tend to forget about what's going on. Quite often we've heard drones or we've heard artillery in the distance and so on. but you tend to just give out the food, and you can see that they're not as disturbed by it as you'd expect them to be. So you think, well, if they're not disturbed, I won't worry either.
What do people there tell you when you arrive? Are they asking for a particular thing?
Occasionally, we get asked for something extra, something in the way of perhaps some medicine or some medical supplies. Sometimes someone will say, I desperately need a power bank rather than a generator because I live in an apartment, so I can't run a petrol generator. But most times it's food. We spent 150 odd thousand pounds on food in the time. People tell you that they cannot believe that someone's come from England. That's the main thing. I can't believe how far you've travelled just to bring us food, because it's a flight to Krakow. It's then a 2.5 to 3 hour train journey to a place near the border. It's then a taxi to the border itself, to the one place you can walk across, a place called Medica. Walk across, meet my Ukrainian friend Igor, and from there it's probably, if we're lucky, 8 hours drive to Kyiv. So it's a fair old journey, and people realise it's a long distance, but yeah, they just can't believe that someone takes the trouble.
Is there one person or family you've met when you've been out there that you find yourself thinking about when you get home?
Probably my friend Igor, who spends the time with me. He sends me videos of stuff that's going on in Kyiv in terms of when they're under attack. And there's stuff we never see on the news, and some of it is absolutely horrific. So I probably worry about him more than anything. There's one particular gentleman, I've got a photo of him in Dnipro. He was there when we were giving out food, came up to grab his bag of food and just put his arms around me and burst into tears. Incredibly sad, incredibly moving, but you tend to remember the good characters. But also everything we do is in memory and honour of a guy called Jordan Gatley. After my second trip, I came back and there was a message on the Nantwich Facebook page from a gentleman called Dean Gatley, and all it said was, we've got Jordan's body back and the funeral is on such and such a date. And it turned out his son, Jordan, left the British Army in March of 2022, went home to his mum and dad and said, right, I'm off to Ukraine. And they went, oh my heavens, no, you're not. Off he went, and very sadly, he died in a place called Severodonetsk on June the 10th, 2022. I contacted his dad, said, can I come to the funeral? I didn't know him, but there's a connection, and become great friends with his mum and dad. So when we go, his picture is all over our van, his picture's on the back of my high-vis jacket, and we do everything to keep his memory alive for his mum and dad as well.
What's one of the hardest things you've seen while you've been in Ukraine?
There was one night where I was in a hotel, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning with an almighty explosion nearby. I looked out the window and you could see missiles, you could see drones, and you could see interceptors being shot up to try and destroy them before they did any damage. And then next morning, after we delivered food to a village, we went back into Kyiv and we went to an apartment building that had been hit by a missile. And the destruction was horrendous. And there must have been 600 or 700 people all standing there virtually in silence, just watching the rescue workers. And they were obviously praying that someone's going to get brought out alive. You know, even if it's a badly injured person, there's still a chance. And I think we stayed there, took a lot of photos, filmed a lot of it. And it was shocking, absolutely shocking. And the Ukrainians even put a little team of people in there to provide refreshments to the people who were just standing there watching, because they're often there for so long. They're incredible people.
It's really important to get that view of what you saw on the ground back to everyone else. The media can be selective in what they show.
Yes. Yeah. It's very sanitized what the media show. I mean, I get videos that sometimes I can't even show my wife. They're so graphic. There's probably 7 or 8 people that I've met who were dead now.
You've experienced shelling and had to leave areas because they're coming under attack. Can you take us to the moment when you realised this has got seriously dangerous?
The first time we had that was we went to a village just outside Sumy, which is fairly close to the Russian border. And we were told we can't gather a group of people there, which is for us the quickest way to give out food. It's a big group. We were told we can't gather the people there. We have to go house to house because there's a Russian drone in the sky. And if they gather together, then you're instantly a target. And then the next stop was a village called Sokani. And as we approached Sokani, there was an army checkpoint and the man was there saying basically stop, which you always have to anyway. But as we wound down the window, you could hear Sokani was being shelled quite heavily. And he said, you definitely can't go there. So turned round and went back to Bilopilia, agreed that we'd leave the 50 bags of food that we had for them in a council building. And whilst we were unloading that food, a shell landed reasonably close. So then we were told we really do need to go. And we said, well, we've got some food for a little hospital here as well. So we rushed off there. Very sad. All of these people were bedridden, many of them amputees, really unwell people. So left a load of food with them. And as we were leaving and taking a photo with our guide and the mayor of the town, again, shells started landing and the guide said, "You have to go and you have to go now."
How do you process what you've seen when you get home?
I know it sounds dreadful. I do what I call a decompress in Krakow. I always make sure I've got an afternoon and an evening in Krakow before I fly home. And I tend not to talk to anyone, even if people try and have a chat. I'll sit there, have a beer, have a decent meal, and just enjoy the view if I can. And then normally by the time I'm back, I've got lots of good stories to tell, but I've managed to completely disregard the stuff that might upset people.
What does your family make of what you do?
Oh, my wife hates it. Absolutely hates it. My two sons, I don't think they worry quite as much. But when I message my wife just as I'm leaving Poland and crossing into Ukraine, and I go, "I'm in Ukraine now." And if I speak to her on the phone and tell her that, you can hear her voice drop. But if I message her, she doesn't even reply normally. I try and speak to her most evenings. I make the mistake sometimes of sending her videos of what's happened the night before. Then I realise I shouldn't have sent that. But then as soon as I phone her and say I'm back in Poland, you can hear her voice lift and she's relieved. She hates it, but she says she would rather worry and have me doing what I'm passionate about doing than complain, stop me doing it, and then have me at home incredibly unhappy.
I'm sure she's incredibly proud of you as well, as
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you've done in Ukraine that, looking back, you wouldn't do again?
You'll probably laugh at this one. I probably wouldn't stand in a petrol station watching a Russian drone flying over while someone's trying to shoot it down.
Not the best place to be stuck.
When I realised the stupidity of that, I should have run like hell, but I've got no regrets on it and I'd go and do it all again.
As you've mentioned, you've raised more than £180,000 with the support of the local community in Nantwich, Cheshire. What does that level of support mean to you?
It's absolutely incredible. When people say, "My God, haven't you done well? Look at what you've raised." I say, no, to be fair, I haven't raised it. Other people's efforts have given me this money. A lot of Rotary clubs have done events. I do a lot of talks for Rotary clubs, Sir Optimists, Women's Institutes, Probus clubs. There's a lovely lady in Nantwich who regularly does a cake sale. She's a fantastic baker and she'll do a cake sale for me and it'll raise £300 or £400 in the morning. I think that the support I've had, I've just been incredibly lucky. But I haven't raised the money. People have raised it for me.
And that money that you do raise, how exactly is that divvied up to all of the expenses and food for Ukraine?
Nearly all of it, every trip goes on food, nearly all of it. But this time when we go in September, we're planning to buy at least 5 or 6 generators as well, because Russia will carry on hitting the infrastructure with winter coming. But when I went in January of this year, most of Kyiv was in complete blackout. They had no electricity at all. It was minus 21. We went in one lady's house in a village and the only heat that she had was one ring on a gas cooker. And her house inside was minus 16. That was inside. So generators this time. But in terms of how we get it to the people who need it the most, I always leave it with Igor. A week before I arrive, Igor will say, "We're going here, 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 and here." And he's already made calls. Sometimes we'll go to the same place, but we won't necessarily give food to the same people. There'll be a new group of people. Sometimes we will give it to the same because we know people are desperate. But the nice thing is we spend all of our money, every penny, in Ukraine itself. We buy all the food in the supermarket there or a cash and carry called Metro. We pack it all in the car park, deliver it. So A, we're keeping money in their economy, and B, we're getting it at a really good price anyway because of the exchange rate. And the way we make sure it gets to people who need it the most is we literally will drive anywhere to take it to them when we know they need it.
That's a very important point that a lot of people wouldn't think of. And I will have assumed that you take the food from the UK.
Oh, no.
But no, keeping the money in their economy is so important.
It's fantastic. I mean, I literally travel with hand luggage from Birmingham and that's it. And then once I get there, I've got a debit card that I think there's been one occasion where I've had over £16,000 to spend. And boy, we can spend it really well.
After everything you've seen, what makes you still go again?
Just seeing the difference we've made. It's only a small difference. But when you realise that, we've given 25 families power for when there's no power, we've delivered food to, oh heavens, 8,000 families. You just realise that you can make a tiny difference. And I'd feel dreadful going, no, I've had enough now. I wouldn't live with myself. You just got to keep going until the war's finished.
Can you see an end to it?
No, No, I think there's another 2 years in it at least.
Is there a particular moment when you realised that what you were doing really had made a difference to somebody?
I think there's probably been several. Just when you realise you go to a house and there might be an old person there on their own and they haven't had food for two weeks, 3 weeks maybe. A lot of the local shops have closed in these little villages. A lot of the public transport isn't there in the way that it used to be. So getting food when you're an elderly and perhaps immobile person is very, very hard. We've seen, especially with the older people, the smiles and the hugs that they give us just because we've taken food to them when they desperately needed it. I think they're probably the ones that make me realise we've made a difference to a good few lives.
Do you worry that the world's losing interest in Ukraine, especially with the other world events that have been happening in the last few years?
Very much so, yeah. When Israel and Gaza started up in the way that it did, the focus went off Ukraine because it was a big news story. Then we've got obviously Trump in Iran. Very sad what's gone on there. But yeah, Ukraine gets relegated to the end of the news or off the news completely. And when you see what's going on there, that's a war that's been going on for longer than World War One. And by the time it finishes, it's going to probably be going on for longer than World War Two. And it's just horrendous to see. So yes, it worries me that the world does lose interest.
What would you like people listening to this to understand about the situation that they may not have heard in the headlines?
Things are quite desperate in many places. When you see buildings that have just been hit by missiles or drones and people were asleep in their beds, they may not have even had an air raid warning and they've woken up probably injured to find that they've lost a child and part of the building's collapsed and so on. You know, there's bodies on the streets in the mornings. It's absolutely dreadful. And the whole of Ukraine suffers from the west to the east. You have to be there to see it.
What's next for you in Ukraine? When are you heading back? And what are you hoping to do? And for anyone who wants to help, what can they do?
Back on the 22nd of September, we are going to obviously buy lots of food. I will be going with at least £12,000, but hopefully a lot more because I've got one particular person who's promising to donate to buy some generators. So hoping to deliver generators in time for the winter. We'll take food to a lot of people, as we always do. In terms of help, I raise nearly all my money on a Just Giving page. Search for Just Giving and Gary Fear. It's not a charity page, it's a crowdfunding page. And the only disadvantage for that is there's no option for people to leave an extra bit with gift aid. But equally, bar the small amount that Just Giving take, every penny that gets put on there, I get.
You're going in January as well?
Yeah, it's the one I dislike the most, or I like the least, because I love them all, but I like it the least because it's just so cold. When you're trying to stand in a cash and carry car park, you can't tie your bags up with gloves on. And yeah, it's bitter. I mean, I've slept in a hotel that had no electricity, no light, no heat. I just took my boots off and got into bed with all my clothes on. And then gradually, as I warmed up, took layers off, woke up in the morning, there's ice on the inside of the windows. It's not pleasant. Then it'll be a May trip and then back to September again. In terms of events coming up, again, well supported by the Rotary clubs. The big event for September on Thursday the 17th at the Crown Hotel. The Rotary Club are putting on a Hope for Ukraine evening. Ukrainian buffet. Ukrainian food's fantastic, by the way. Live music, obviously other fundraising going alongside. A tree of hope, as they call it, with lots of various gifts on. And then in a place called Knighton near Market Drayton on the 12th of September, there's the poet-comedian Mac McFadden. Really good time, very amusing guy. That's selling well. I'm just especially grateful to people who've donated or done anything. I really am. When you think of the effort that some people go to, they're brilliant. But the very first event that someone did for me was a lovely young girl at primary school in the village where I live. And she wanted to do a bake sale. And she wanted to raise £150. And her dad said, if you raise £150, I'll match it. So she set up a little stall in her garden. I popped down and obviously bought some cakes and so on. And then she messaged, or her mum messaged to say she's already at 350 quid. So her dad's there going, oh no, I'm going to have to match it. And sure enough, he did. So we raised £700. And that was in the very first event that anyone did. And I still remember that. That was quite incredible. It's just the way people have got behind me.
Gary, I think it's fair to say that what you've shared with us today is an extraordinary story. You've seen things that I think most of us can barely imagine. But through your words, it's a stark reminder that there are still people living it every minute of every hour of every day. Please, if you're able to support Gary's next trip, all the details of how you can contribute will be in the podcast description. Thank you so much for your time today, Gary.
Thank you so much, and thank you for giving me the time just to tell a little bit of my story.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review. It really helps others to find us. Be sure to join us again to hear another voice from our community. Until next time, let's continue sharing our stories and creating a community that's stronger together.